Good morning, everyone. It's early, 7:48 a.m. I just thought to do this stream because it's something I've been thinking about for a long, long time, like several years, and I've spent a bit of time like writing a document, which is sort of like a charter, and I've got this idea that this thing that I want to do, and it's like a dream. It's like there's nothing wrong with dreaming big and thinking about something amazing. And I spoke about this a couple of times in the last few streams where um, I would dream about things to escape from the pain I was in and or the situations I was in. And so it didn't matter how big a task that would be to accomplish. It doesn't matter because it's a dream. And then you can still have practicality. And so even if you're working through the idea and you're thinking about how you, even though it's something that's so immense, or complex, doesn't mean you can't actually practically work out how you could feasibly go about achieving this goal or creating this thing. And so often that's what I do when I have um, when I dream a dream of something amazing. And it's the beauty of it is your imagination can just you're free. And you can get a book and you can write in the book, like what you want to do. And it doesn't matter if you don't do it or not. Like it's the process of like having the idea and like imagining it and thinking of how good it would be. And this this idea that I thought of is it's sort of incrementally um, emerged over several years. And there's a certain degree of um, personal interest and also people that I know and people that I've met who would benefit from something like what I'm talking about. And I've talked about there's a video on here where I talk about what is a falling leaf, and I talk about um, it's like a proverb that I wrote, and the concept is that a leaf grows on a tree, and at some point something happens, and the leaf falls off the tree, and it makes its way down to the ground, and it's no longer it's no longer the leaf on the tree, and it's but the thing is it's got a new purpose, it's got a new life, it becomes something else. And there are very vulnerable people in this world that have gone through extreme hardship And um, I I think there's a whole selection of um, people that have had their whole lives ruined, or in an instant, or it's been destroyed over a long period of time. And so having an opportunity for these people to become something new, to start again, would be something amazing. Um, like, so I'll I'll talk more about the falling leaf later, but like, essentially what I'm talking about is like a not-for-profit charity that has a specific goal to take in people from society that have been severely damaged and give them a whole new life, a whole new lease of life. And they might not know what they want to become, but they know that once they've entered into this um, program system, that they're safe, they're being looked after, and they've got a whole their life can start again. They've got an opportunity to thrive and grow and start a new life, and something that would have been unfathomable. I can't even say it. Unbelievable. It would have been unbelievable to them. Unfathomable. Sorry, I can't say the word. Um, Unfathomable. That's it. See, it was worth trying it so I could actually say it. Anyway, um, so I'm talking about some of the most vulnerable survivors of horrible, horrific things, um, that then get to decide what they want to do. And maybe they don't even know what they want to do yet. So I've thought deeply about how this process could happen. And there's multiple ways, but essentially the core principles are people who have survived something horrific and horrible get this opportunity by moving to a safe location that has lots of opportunities. And these opportunities give this person new skills, time to heal, and a safe environment, and the option to try out a few things before they really even decide what they want to do. And so it's something that would be open to almost anyone, except there would be a core group of the most vulnerable that are the primary purpose for creating this not-for-profit charity. And so they're people who are survivors of um, trafficking, um, um, witnesses to serious crimes. So it's like an alternative to witness protection. People escaping severe abuse, which I can't mention on here, but you can sort of get an idea of um, the type of interpersonal essay that starts with the letter I that happens. Um, there would also be um, people who are escaping from cults. So people who are running away from a cult, um, they could come to this place and start a new life. And there would be a deprogramming um, aspect and a rehabilitation, and um, so the core, and not just people escaping from cults. Um, you, um, people who've suffered institutional abuse and ritual abuse, and that sort of overlaps with the cults as well. So um, people that essentially like slip through the cracks, don't get representation, and um, you know, the other group would be like a witness protection, where um, like whistleblowers, or people who are very vulnerable because they've witnessed some very high level crimes, and um, they just need to start their life again. So it's essentially witness protection, and this not for profit would actually liaise with the governments where they these facilities exist, and they would get paid by the governments to um, rehabilitate and heal these people. Um, it would also obviously rely on charitable donations. People could donate land um, for these facilities. People could donate their time to help the running and the ongoing programs. And there would also be revenue streams where um, the very nature of the programs is to do things, make things. So um, whatever gets produced by the people that live in these places um, are products which then get sold to people in the world, and then the people that are buying these products um, know that the money that the products made by someone who's healing and um, escaping from something horrific. And so they buy some high quality item or food product, and then that money goes directly back into the running of the facilities. And it's essentially a multi-100-year plan. Like I've got, I've written it out so it would have stages that go, and then over, hundreds of years. And so it would go through a review process, which is it would do things differently to what a lot of institutions and organizations don't do. And so it would have a healthy review process and a democratic process, yet at the same time having a master plan that goes over hundreds of years. It would have to stick, and it would have to adhere to certain principles. So any charity or not-for-profit, it has to serve a purpose, and it has to deliver on that. And the idea about this concept of for this not-for-profit charity would be, as it grows, it can expand and then take on more complexity and do more. And it has a certain degree of adaptability too. And then it would take a period of time to actually establish itself. So the first 50 years or 100 years would be establishing itself, and then it could sort of continue on its work for several hundred years without major change, because any change would be just adapting to the new environment, and still keeping its core principles, but still having a democratic core foundation. And it would be very much, because it's dealing with some of the most vulnerable people, it has to be very safe and secure. And yet at the same time, it would also be open to a much broader range of people. And so that's an example of how the organization would, as it grows, it would change certain things, because it would adapt to taking on different programs within the greater cause, and facilitation. So, it would have its own internal revenue stream by creating products which are made by the people, which then that money comes back in. It would have funding streams that come from governments and other organizations. For instance, if there was an institution that had damaged some people, they could be given a new lease of life through these facilities of healing, and the institution that's responsible would actually pay money to the organization to ensure that it's paying for them to get rehabilitated, and they're doing it themselves. So it's the concept is giving people space and time to learn new skills and have the opportunity to move around into different areas, um, to work out what they really want to do, um, you know, and what's not only what they want to do, what they're able to do, because some people are so severely damaged, um, there might be limitations as to you know, what they want to do or what they can do. So each individual would be like assessed to suggest what particular things they could do, and the individual themselves would be able to have the opportunity to um, direct what they want to do themselves. So you know that it's you could have suggestions, but then the individual can decide what they want to do. So there's the ability for people to move around within um, the different areas within this organization, which is essentially properties that produce food, build houses, teach people new skills, um, work on their health. Like, for instance, there would be an element where professionals would be asked to volunteer their expertise to come and spend a bit of time, maybe a few years of their life, and take a pay cut, and serve this community or these communities to help them. So, for instance, everyone would have free dental work. There would be other medical services that could be provided within in-house within these properties, essentially. So think of it like each property would be like a village, and there's different industries within each village, and they produce things which then get sold or used within. So um, if 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 there's a capacity to make quality handmade footwear, then the shoes don't necessarily have to get sold to people in the general public. They could also be issued, given to people who are there. Same thing with clothing, food. So there would be like permaculture and small scale farming projects and nurseries and greenhouses and herb gardens, and the bakery, and there would be all the things that you would sort of expect in a small community that is self-sustainable, and would still have access to high levels of care. So not just when I say professionals would be not enticed, but they would have the opportunity to volunteer or dedicate a portion of their life to exit the greater world and come and spend some time within these um, uh, renewal, regrowing, healing centers. They would be able to. You could have psychologists, you could have doctors, um, anything you could think of that would be something that is a high level of care that could then be um, accessible in-house and available to these vulnerable people. And it would all be on their terms too. So some people might want to go through a continual placement where they spend 6 months or a few months doing one thing and they learn a skill, they move on to another thing. Other people might discover something that they're really interested in. It might be traditional carpentry, for instance, cabinet making or carpentry, because there'll be lots of houses that need to get built. And so that someone could realize that they want to become a carpenter. And then so the beauty of this thing is that you've got all these expert carpenters that are, have all these skills and they'd love to do something good for the world, so they could do the same thing as the dentists or the doctors or the psychologists. They could donate their retirement years. They could teach people how to build traditionally. So, essentially it's based on having properties which then become healing centers that have some sophisticated services like dentistry, and each place would have a small surgery, and for doctors to perform basic procedures. There would be ongoing training for anyone that wanted to learn stuff. There would be the ability to have like miniature universities. So existing universities could partner with a particular location and say, we can offer these courses. And so these people who are going through a restart of their life might be at a stage where they're ready to study something seriously to get a particular qualification, and then they could then go back into, they could leave and then become a professional doing something, and they can then help people in the greater world rather than in these sanctuaries, essentially sanctuaries. And because they're highly vulnerable people, some people would be like witness protection, as giving confidence to these people would be to have a security element. So you could have retired veterans or ex-servicemen and women that would be honoured to um, be guardians protecting these vulnerable people, so that they knew that um, if they were escaping danger, that danger is not going to come and find them. And that's so it's essentially um, some like it's a varying scale, um, but then it's not about comparison, except in some respects you'd have to have comparisons. There would be more sensitivity with particular people because of where they've come from, and if it was an alternative to witness protection, then governments could pay for their rehabilitation. And I know if rehabilitation is a good word, it would maybe restarting their life, or starting again. Some people would be, it's up to the individual. They might want to specialize and just do one thing. It might be more beneficial for them to slow down and take things a little bit more easy. And it might be that um, some people find a home in um, tending a garden, or growing food, or working in a cabinet making shop, um, or making shoes or clothing, or anything. What it could just be one thing. It's not like everyone has to learn lots of things, but you also have the opportunity where people could, as part of their healing, spend time um, moving from placement to placement. So they might spend a few months in a bakery or a kitchen and become very skilled at cooking, and then they move on to the horticulture and learn permaculture and horticulture and learn how to grow the food. You might be working with animals, like animal husbandry. It could be doing a course that gives them qualifications, so they could then become healers themselves. It all depends on what's possible, and having it open so that people have the opportunity to try things out too. So they could do something for a few months and um, come back to the um, to the group and say, look, this isn't working out. I need to try something different. And then they get the opportunity to try something different. And because they the food is being grown, um, everyone's looked after. Everyone's getting their healthcare and nutritious food and education as much as they want. Um, there would be an element of um, understanding that um, a, a decent proportion of um, the people that come to this new life um, would have a religion themselves or spiritual belief or not, and all of that would be respected. But then within this village atmosphere, uh, no one particular religion would be given um, a higher standing than others. So, and there would be um, there wouldn't there would be some restriction on um, people's ability to um, push any religion on other people. So there would be places where people could go and study all religions. Um, uh, a big aspect to the survivors um, of cults would be they either don't want anything to do with any religion, or they still retain part of where they came from, and they have conflicting issues with it. So there would be the opportunity for people to practice, but there would be no central um, dominant, um, and there would be no sort of practices that were um, done essentially. Like, people would still have the ability to study. And the point I'm trying to make is that um, for something like this, it has to be very open and aware, self-aware. So um, everyone who comes to this place or these places, because the idea would be you have multiple properties all over the world, even, but you start off very small with one, with a few houses, and then it's like I said, it's a multi-hundred-year plan. So, like, you don't you work out how to make it work, and then it could then exist in essentially most countries of the world. Um, so to not become a cult itself, it would have to educate, or have the capacity to educate anyone there on identifying cultic behavior and manipulative behavior. Um, and by doing so, that would protect itself from becoming what it doesn't want to become. And so um, especially if you're trying to give people a place to deprogram and start a new life, the last thing they want is to end up back in a cult again. So, and this is the idea is that it's self-aware and it can't actually become that. Um, but yet, saying that, it would be more like a village or a small civilization within a sanctuary civilization that is not detached from society, but it's self-isolated for a very good reason. It's because the people that are there are very vulnerable and they need to feel safe. So you have this thing where professionals can come in from industry, from that come in. Maybe they spend a few years and then they do their bit, and then they take a pay cut and they um, give quality service to people that are there, and then they go back to their industry that they were in, and it's like they're doing their bit, for humanity. Um, so there would be some places where people could stay, and live out the rest of their life, and then there would be other places where um, the intention is that the individual spends a few years there, um, starting their life again, learning some skills, and lots of skills. They could move around and learn lots of things in a few years' time, and then they would have an idea about what they might want to do, and then they could specialize in that, and then they have the option then to reintegrate with society or stay within the village atmosphere. And um, so in a lot of respects it would be a much simpler way of life, and that's where the healing aspect is there, is that everyone's required to do a certain amount, but it's only just enough that they need to do. Um, there would have to be very well established conflict resolution procedures, and risk assessment for lots of things, for the interpersonal relationships, and you know um, procedures for all that stuff. And essentially, if it was done right, you wouldn't have problems, or you wouldn't have many problems. But the thing is that if you're dealing with people that are um, quite damaged from where they've come from, it would depend on the individual, um, how damaged they are, how much healing they need to do, what capacity do they have, um, and you know that can be assessed um, initially, and then as time goes on, that can be reassessed as to decide what the individual wants themselves, or what what's suited for them. So that safety and security is a big thing. So um, we're talking about people who are starting their lives again. Like they'd be, a lot of them would be changing their names, or um, maybe if they're keeping their name, maybe some of them are um, they're just starting their life again. They're becoming something new. They're getting a new lease on life. They're having an opportunity to live again. So it wouldn't just be work as well. Like you would have the arts. So if people want to do art, they could do art. Could be music, could be theatre, it could be sculpture. Visual arts and the traditional arts. Um, and again, you know, this knowledge base of people around the world that have got these amazing skills in these. Um, they call it, lost arts or traditional arts, but and that's why I think simplicity is a big thing, where um, focusing on not just building, for instance, building houses in a traditional way. You can combine that with modern technology, and again, architects and designers could come in and volunteer a portion of their career to help design and build a village. And engineers, so they could engineer the larger buildings um, that require that that level of skill. And then, you know, in amongst, like, you have these core, like, who's it for? What's the purpose? What purpose does it serve for the greater community? So these are the most vulnerable people. Um, that it's not just people from that country. Even it could be refugees that come in from another country, and so um, it's um, it's an alternative to forcing people to stay within a society that's damaged them. And the thing is, these are people that have been off the fringe of it too. For instance, people who've been trafficked, or people who are in cults. Um, they they may have lived alongside people, lived in the same cities, had jobs in businesses and factories and things, but they were also living this separate life as part of this abusive um, group. Um, and then, so you have the core, um, most vulnerable, and then it filters down to um, people who've survived lots of things. So the idea is that these sanctuaries are open to almost anyone, you know, um, and there can be different ones. So there can be more sensitive ones, where the people that are living there and going through the healing process, starting their life again. There might be ones that are for the more damaged or sensitive people, and then higher security, not security risk, but there needs to be more security for them, and anonymity. People escaping from something need to know that they're safe. They're not going to get tracked down by the people they ran away from. And the same thing for if this if these villages were able to um, take in witness protection um, elements, that would have to be securing the area so that no one knew they were there. Um, so some would be more public and some would be more private, depending on who's there. Um, there would have to be, besides conflict resolution and risk assessment, there would also have to be um, guidelines for what is appropriate behavior, as far as, people are going to end up in relationships somehow, um, but there would have to be a fair system for um, not banishing that, because you know, wouldn't it be nice for someone who's had some absolute horrible things happen in their life, get given this new lease of life, and then they actually find someone they fall in love with? So that should be uh, allowed to happen. It's not like people aren't allowed to interact, type thing. But obviously, professionalism and safety is a major aspect to it all. And the individuals themselves would be directing their own destiny, in a sense. So they would say it, or have it written down um, in their log, uh, what their preference is to do. Some people might be never want to think about a relationship. Other people would be like, I'm open to that, um, except I've got to heal first. You know what I'm saying? So there's it's like this dream that there's this possibility for these sanctuaries to exist that just give people a whole new lease on life. And it would be a great thing for society to actually allow this to happen. And if it was done right, um, it could be it could exist. These could exist in every country of the world. And if the system was, you know, respectful and safe, it could exist without incident. The whole point of this is that it's trying to undo the horrors that have um, come out of um, the um, the neglect and corruption that has existed within uh, society and institutions in the first place. So it would be sort of honourable for governments to actually embrace this as something that could exist. And like I said, if part of the charter was to be self-aware and to ensure that it doesn't become the very thing that it's trying to counteract, um, then there's a good chance that it could exist for hundreds of years or longer, you know. And it would give so many people opportunities too. Like it would give people that have skills to offer, and they could be semi-retired or retired, but then go, I'd love to go spend a couple of years at this place and teach people how to do this particular thing, and that's keeping those those skills alive and thriving. And then so yeah, I have written quite an extensive sort of plan about this where it stretches it out over time and how it integrates with various government departments and how it liaises with institutions that have caused damage, and then basically gets them to pay for the rehabilitation. Um, and then you'd have instances where it's just straight up charity, where like you couldn't have um, reimbursement or remuneration from guilty parties because it's just not possible. So that'd be in the cases of people who are trafficked and that come from organized crime or from cults that are difficult to deal with. So it would be there would have to be a lot of respect of the individual and understanding of how sensitive everyone is. Um, so it would be there would be it'd be different in a lot of ways. But then if there was um, that community aspect to it and the village aspect, then again, if knowledge was also allowed to be part of it too. So along with having like mini university campuses, you'd have libraries and you could have people could learn about the world and they could become experts, and then they could, if they that could open up um, greater opportunities for people to um, contribute to society if they chose to go back to living in society. Um, I think a big thing would be that um, a lot of people wouldn't um, necessarily want to go back. That once they live in this village atmosphere, um, they would want to stay there, and you have provision for that. It just might be that you have some locations have got limited um, time before you have to move on, and then you have other locations that are more long term. And then obviously people, as they heal, develop skills, um, they then become teachers and guides and facilitators, and then they would move around from location to location, um, being part of the actual um, team of people that are working to help these people. So there'd be a portion of these people that once they heal, they want to then go on to heal other people, and but it certainly would work if it was funded, and these, and not just funded from donations, but funded through um, the need to reimburse for the services that are being rendered, you know, and on top of that, if each location had small scale industry, people would buy these products, and knowing that the money that they spend on these products is actually going back into making this all work, you know, people would hopefully, ideally, most of the properties would be donated. So you didn't have to buy the properties even. There's plenty of people who've got lots of money that would love to be contributing to something that was making a change in the world. And essentially, because you have it open to the most vulnerable, and then you have different scales where, you know, it's not just that list of candidates which I talked about. It's actually a massive list. They're just the most vulnerable. That would be the reason to start something like this, and then you have it open to almost anyone, because I mean, complex trauma is like 1 in 4 people, and so there's a lot of people out there that are needing healing. Um, Being healing centers could actually be an alternative to having mental health wards. So people who aren't feeling well, not going, their life's falling apart, instead of going to a hospital and things potentially being made worse for them, they could go and do something constructive and healthy, and heal their issues, you know, with this system. So it could benefit everyone, almost everyone. So, I mean, that's just the overview. It gets very particular when you start talking about details, but you get the idea that, each location could have it. Each location gets assessed as to what purpose it could have, and depending on what resources are there, you know, depends on what particular unique industry or it could be rehabilitation of land. So it could be the most degraded um, landscape that's been destroyed by human activity, and then this organization, this not-for-profit charity, comes along and heals the land. It's not just healing the people; it's actually healing the land. So, for instance, mining X, they could go to places which are abandoned mines and contain all the tailing ponds and plant the trees back and try and bring it back to nature. Having it somehow interconnect with society and keeping the door open so people can leave and professionals can come and spend time as part of their service to humanity and then go back. They could even be enticed with tax offsets or all that sort of stuff. Universities could come on board and offer courses. So all you need is the facilities. And obviously, I didn't talk about the intricacy of the programs that would exist as part of the healing rehabilitation. I have thought a lot about that, but then, that's a big aspect that needs to, that's where finding the right people to write those curriculums and create those pathways to healing through formalizing things. But it doesn't have to be that. The beauty of it is it can also be quite calm. The idea is that it has to be calm. It has to be simple. If you're creating a village where most of the people there are severely damaged from horrific things, it's going to be calm naturally, but it has to also actively be that way to protect the people and then give them a comfortable place where they can then thrive and start their life again. So I'm going to keep writing this charter and keep talking to people about and finding people that are interested in creating this framework for how it could work. And who knows? Things can happen. Like I said, if people are going to donate property. Professionals will donate their time. Things will happen. So I'm just seeing a lot of thanks and awesome in the comments. So I think I'll leave it there, everyone. I just wanted to express my dream for something that could be an amazing thing, and it could connect so many people across all industries and disciplines and solve so many problems, and it could be self-sustainable. It could fund itself, and it could also be funded through the work it does, through remuneration. So I'll keep writing this plan down, this, so it's like a, see what happens, and I'll keep talking to people about it. Maybe something will happen. But yeah, thanks for being here today. Like I won't read the comments out, but I'm just reading them, that they're everyone's saying lovely things. So much love to everyone. Thank you for listening to me today.